Hello dear aspirants, welcome to Epitome IAS. So we are doing this UPSC PYQ analysis. So today's topic is the fundamental rights, DPSP and the fundamental duties. So let us start with the first question, that is, what is the position of the right to property in India? Option A, legal right available to citizens only. Option B, legal right available to any person. Option C, fundamental rights available to citizens only. Option D, neither fundamental right nor a legal right. So if you see in the original constitution, we had this right to property in Article 31 of the Indian Constitution, in which it was part of the fundamental rights. But later what happened? This particular Article 3 was removed and the right to property was added in Article 300A of Indian Constitution. So now this particular right to property is not a fundamental right, but it is a constitutional right or a legal right. So if we see here in the fourth statement, it is neither fundamental right nor legal right. We can eliminate this option because it is a legal right. And if you see option C, fundamental right available only to the citizens. No, the right to property is not the fundamental right. It has been already removed from the fundamental right and it was added in Article 300A. So we can also eliminate this particular option. If you see option A, it is a legal right available only to the citizens. Option B, legal right available to any person. So in both the cases, they have correctly given that it is a legal right. But whether it is available to citizens only or it is available to both foreigners and the citizen, that is the question. So recently the Supreme Court of India, it said that this particular right, the right to property, it is available to both citizens and the foreigners. So the correct answer would be option B. The right to property is a legal right which is available to both citizens and the foreigners. So if you see here, yes, the right to property, it is a legal right, or we can say it is a constitutional right available to any person, both the citizens and the foreigners. And what happened is, initially in the original constitution, this particular right was part of Article 31. But what happened is, we removed it from fundamental rights and we added it in Article 300A of the constitution. So this particular article, currently Article 300A, it provides for the right to property. This particular thing was amended in 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978. This is very important. In the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, they removed this particular right from the fundamental right and they added it to Article 300A, and now it is a constitutional right. We can call it as a legal right. So that's it. Let's go to the next question. Consider the following statements in respect of Bharat Ratna and Padma Awards. Option A, Bharat Ratna and Padma Awards are titles under Article 18(1) of the Constitution of India. Statement B, Padma Awards, which were instituted in the year 1954, were suspended only once. Statement 3, the number of Bharat Ratna awards is restricted to maximum of 5 in a particular year. So if you see here, in the first statement, they have given that the Bharat Ratna and the Padma awards are titled under the Article 18 of the Constitution. So the Article 18 talks about the abolition of titles. So these titles are the titles which are given to the nobilities. Like before independence, they had these titles of Maharaja, Raja, Bahadur, and etc. So this particular titles, they were kind of a privileges given to a particular section of the society. So this created the discrimination between the people. So that's why they have come up with this particular article, Article 18, and they have abolished all the titles. But what they are saying here in this first statement is Bharat Ratna and Padma Awards are the titles mentioned in the Article 18. No, the Supreme Court said the Bharat Ratna and the Padma Awards or any national awards, they are not part of the titles which are mentioned in Article 18 because they are not going to create any discrimination, right? So this particular statement is wrong. If you see the second statement, Padma Awards, which were instituted in the year 1954. Yes, this is correct. The Padma Awards was instituted in the year 1954. But the second part of the statement says, were suspended only once. No, this is wrong. This Padma Award, it was suspended twice, not only once. So this statement is also wrong. If you see option C, the number of Bharat Ratna awards is restricted to a maximum of 5 in a particular year. No, this is wrong. The maximum number of Bharat Ratna awards is number 3. They can give to 3 people in a particular year. So this statement is also wrong. So what is the correct answer? They are asking about which of the following is not correct. You have to always see whether they are asking for the correct statements or the incorrect statements. So they are asking for a incorrect statement. So the correct answer would be 1, 2 and 3. And if you see here, they have given that Article 18(1), it abolishes all titles. It prohibits the state from conferring titles to anybody, both the citizen or a foreigner. The state, the government cannot confer title to anybody. These are some of the exceptions which are given in the constitution. What are these exceptions? That is the military or the academic distinctions. These are some of the exemptions from the titles which are mentioned in the Article 18 of the constitution. And also, if a university is giving any title or honor to a man of merit, yes, this is also a exception, because these particular things, the academic distinctions or the military awards or this university which is giving title or honor, these are not going to create any discrimination. These are given to the people who have the merit. So these does not come under the titles which are mentioned in the Article 18 of the Constitution. Just like that, the national awards such as the Bharat Ratna, the Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan and the Padma Shri, these also do not come under Article 18 of the Constitution. And if you see here, let us have just a recall about the Padma Awards. The Padma Awards were instituted in 1954. It is awarded to the citizens of India in recognition for their distinguished contribution in various spheres of activity. The government suspended this particular practice only 2 times, once in 1977 and another in 1992. No need to remember this year, just remember twice. This has been suspended twice. And maximum 3 people can be awarded with Bharat Ratna in a particular year. In a particular year, only 3 people maximum can be awarded. And in case of Padma Awards, maximum 120 people can be awarded for the Padma Awards. The next question, right to privacy is protected under which article of the Constitution of India? This question was asked in 2021. This is a very simple and factual question. The right to privacy is a part of the right to liberty, life and liberty, which is nothing but the part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So this is the correct answer. So if you see here, yes, according to Article 21 of the Constitution, the right to privacy is protected as an intrinsic part of right to life and personal liberty. And this is part 3 of the Constitution. What is part 3? That is the fundamental rights. So now the next question, a legislation which confers on the executive or administrative authority an unguided and uncontrolled discretionary power in matter of application of a law violates which one of the following articles of the Constitution of India? Option A, Article 14, option B, Article 28, option C, Article 32, and option D, Article 44. So if you see, they are asking that if there is a legislation which is giving uncontrolled power to any particular executive or administrative authority, it will violate which article of the Constitution? If you see here in Article 14, we talk about equality before law. So this particular provision is a part of rule of law. So the rule of law talks about some important points. What are they? No arbitrary execution of power by the government. The government can't act arbitrarily. The government should act inconsistent with the law. It can't act arbitrarily. If it wants to punish any particular person, it should be done by the provisions of the law. It cannot pick any person and it cannot punish the way it wants. So there is no arbitrariness. No arbitrariness by the government. So this is the most important point of the rule of law. So technically, this particular provision which was given in this question is the arbitrary power, arbitrary exercise of power. So in Article 14, it talks about this. So the correct answer is Article 14. See here, in Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, it says that the state shall not deny any person equality before law and equal protection of laws. So this particular equality before law provision, it is a part, it is an element of the concept rule of law. So the rule of law has the major or the important point, that is absence of arbitrary power. The government cannot act arbitrarily. So this is part of the rule of law. And another part of rule of law is nothing but the equality before law. That is, every citizen should be treated equally before the law. No one is above, no one is below. Even if it is a prime minister or a clerk, or rich or poor, everyone is equal in front of the law. So this is what the rule of law says. So the next question. Which one of the following categories of the fundamental rights incorporated against untouchability as a form of discrimination? So they are asking about the untouchability. So if you see here, they have given some option: right against exploitation, right to freedom, right to constitutional remedies, and right to equality. So if you see here, the right to abolition of untouchability, it comes under the Article 17 of the Constitution. So Article 17 is part of what? Article 17 is part of right to equality. The right to equality is related to Article 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18. So Article 17 talks about the abolition of untouchability. So the correct answer is D, right to equality. If you see here, yes, Article 17 of the Constitution of India, it abolishes the untouchability and it forbids the practice in any form. And this comes under the right to equality, which is Article 14 to Article 18 of the Constitution. If you see here, these are the fundamental rights which are given in the constitution. The first one is right to equality, which is article 14 to article 18, and the second is right to freedom, that is article 19 to article 22 of the constitution, and the third is right against exploitation, that is article 23 and 24, and right to freedom of religion, this is article 25 to 28, and the cultural and educational rights, that is article 29 and 30, and we have right to constitutional remedies, that is article 32, and the right to property, which was part of article 31, it was removed from the fundamental right and it was added in article 300A of the constitution. That's it. So the next question, which part of the Constitution of India declares the ideal of a welfare state? So where we read the welfare state? Option A, Directive Principles of State Policy. Option B, Fundamental Rights. Option C, Preamble. Option D, 7th Schedule. So the welfare state, we always read about the welfare state in the Directive Principles of State Policy. The Directive Principles of State Policy is given in the Constitution, for it will act as a guide to the government. The government, while formulating the policies and while enacting laws, the government should keep in mind these provisions which are given in the Directive Principles of State Policy, and it is given for the welfare of the citizens of India and a welfare state. So the correct answer is DPSP. If you see here in part 4, of the Constitution, it talks about the Directive Principles of State Policy. The articles of the DPSP, that is Article 36 to 51 of the Indian Constitution, it deals with DPSP and it declares the ideal of welfare state. So the DPSP is mentioned in the Constitution. Why? Because these are the ideals which are meant to be kept in mind by the state when it is formulating any policies or enacting any laws. The government should always keep in mind that these are the ideals which are given in the DPSP. The DPSP aims to create a socio-economic condition where the citizens of the state can lead a good life and establish socio-economic democracy through a welfare state. So the next question, with reference to the provisions contained in Part 4 of the Constitution of India, which of the following statements is or are correct? Statement 1, they shall be enforceable by the courts. Statement 2, they shall not be enforced by any court. Statement 3, the principles laid down in this part are to influence the making of the laws by the state. So first tell me, what is part 4 of Constitution? Just now we saw part 4 is nothing but the DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy, that is mentioned in part 4 of the Constitution. So in statement 1 they have given that the part 4, that is the DPSP, is enforceable by the courts. Is it true? No, the DPSP is not enforceable by the courts. So this particular statement is wrong. And if you see the second statement, they shall not be enforceable by the court. Is it true? Yes, it is not enforceable by the court of law. And if you see the third statement, the principles laid down in this part are to influence the making of law. Is it true? Just now we saw the DPSP. It is mentioned in the Constitution for the only purpose. What is that purpose? The makers of the law or the policy, the government should always keep in mind these ideals which are given in the DPSP while formulating policies and while enacting the laws. So this particular statement is correct. So what is the correct answer? 2 and 3, that is option D. So the next question, in India, separation of judiciary from the executive is enjoyed by option A, the preamble of the constitution, option B, directive principles of state policy, option C, the 7th schedule, option D, the conventional practice. So the separation of judiciary from the executive, where it is mentioned in Article 50 of the constitution. Article 50. So Article 50 is nothing but the part of DPSP, the Directive Principles of State Policy. So the correct answer is option B. Next question. Other than the fundamental rights, which of the following parts of the Constitution of India reflects the principles and provision of Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Statement 1, that is preamble. 2, directive principles of state policy. 3, fundamental duties. So if you see, obviously the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the fundamental rights have some provisions of human rights, but apart from the fundamental rights, they are asking which of these following have the provision which are mentioned in the human rights. The preamble talks about the justice, that is the economic justice, the social justice, and the political justice. It also talks about liberty and equality. What are these? These are nothing but the provisions of the human rights. So yes, preamble is there. Then the directive principles of state policy. Again, these directive principles of state policy is for the welfare of the citizens. So it also has provisions which are there in the human rights. Then fundamental duties. Again, it talks about some of the provisions which are there in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So the correct answer would be D, 1, 2 and 3. So if you see here, you can clearly understand the objectives of preamble such as justice, social, economic and political justice, equality and liberty. These also are reflected in the principle of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And Article 22 of the UDHR, it talks about the members of the society has a right for social security and entitled to realization through national effort and international cooperation. And the directive principles of state policy, it is also having a close resemblance of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So all the four, the fundamental right, the DPSP, the fundamental duties, along with the preamble, all these have some bearings of the provisions related to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So the next question, which article of the Constitution of India safeguards one's right to marry the person of one's choice? Option A, Article 19. Option B, Article 21. Option C, Article 25. Option D, Article 29. So if you see here, they are asking about the right to marry a person of one's choice. This is nothing but it is a part of right to life and personal liberty. So this is nothing but the part of what? Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So the correct answer is option B. So the next question is, which one of the following reflects the nicest appropriate relationship between the law and liberty? So they are asking about the relationship between the law and liberty. Option A, if there are more laws, there is less liberty. Option B, there are no laws, there is no liberty. Option C, if there is liberty, the laws have to be made by the people. Option D, if laws are changed too often, liberty is in danger. So if you see here, they are asking about the relation between the law and the liberty. So let us see option D. If laws are changed too often, The liberty is in danger. Is that so? So if you see here, when the time changes, when the culture, when the time changes, according to that, the laws can be amended again and again. It does not necessarily means that the liberty is in danger. So we can simply eliminate this particular option. Then if you see option C, if there is liberty, the laws have to be made by the people. So in our country, yes, we have liberty, the liberty, and we are talking about the right to life and personal liberty in Article 21 of the Constitution, right? So we have liberty. Are we making the laws? Tell me. No, our representatives are making the laws. The people are directly, they are not making the laws. But we still have liberty. So this particular statement is wrong. And if you see option A, if there are more laws, there is less liberty. Is it true? Let's say there are more number of bad laws. Yes, the government is trying to restrict the liberty of people, the liberty of individual. But let's say there are more number of good laws for the citizen to help them develop themselves. Then it will not lessen the liberty. Rather, it will help to promote the liberty of the individual. So this particular statement would be wrong. And if you see option B, if there are no laws, there is no liberty. Yes, this statement is correct. How? Let us say there is no law in this country. What will happen? People can act the way they want. There is no restriction. So the powerful people, what will they do? They will suppress the weak people. And what will happen? Then the individual liberty of the victims or the people, weak people, it will be hampered, right? So when there is no law, there is no liberty. This is the correct answer. So option B is the correct answer. The next question, right to privacy is protected as an intrinsic part of right to life and personal liberty. Yes, this is true. What they are asking, which of the following in the Constitution of India correctly and appropriately imply the above statement? So option A, Article 14 and the provisions under 42nd Amendment Act of the Constitution. Option B, Article 17 and the directive principles of the state policy, which is in the Part 4 of the Constitution. Option C, Article 21 of the Constitution and the freedoms guaranteed under Part 3 of the Constitution. Option D, Article 24 and the provisions under 44th Amendment to the Constitution. So now they are directly asking about right to privacy and right to life and personal liberty. It is a very simple and straightforward question. What they are asking about the right to life and personal liberty, which is part of Article 21 of the Constitution, and it is a freedom guaranteed under the Part 3 of the Constitution. What is Part 3? That is nothing but the fundamental rights. So the correct answer would be C. So the next question, in the context of India, which one of the following is the correct relationship between the rights and the duties? So they are asking about the relationship between rights and the duties. Option A, rights are correlative with the duties. Option B, rights are personal and hence independent of the society and the duties. Option C, rights, not duties, are important for advancement of the personality of a citizen. Option D, duties, not rights, are important for the stability of the state. So if you see option A, they are saying that the rights are correlative with the duties. Is it true? Yes, the rights and the duties have a mutual relationship. Let us consider the rights, that is nothing but, let's say, for example, we'll take the fundamental rights, and the duties, we'll take the fundamental duties. So what is the relationship between these two, the rights and the duties? These are nothing but, let's say the right is the protection of right of a citizen by the state. This is state and this is citizen. So now the state has the power to protect the rights of the citizen, right? And in other way, if we see, the citizen has to follow certain duties in order to show the loyalty to the state. So the fundamental rights or the rights and the duties are correlative to each other. They have a mutual relationship. So this particular statement would be a correct statement. Still, let us check the other statements also. If you see option B, rights are personal. Is it true? Rights are personal. No, rights are not personal. And they have given that it is independent of the society and the duties. No, just now we saw the rights are having a mutual relationship between the duties. So it is not independent of the duties, as well as it is not independent as of the society. It is dependent on both society and the duty. So this particular statement is wrong. And if you see option C, rights not duties are important for advancement of a personality of the citizen. They are saying that yes, rights, they'll be helping in the advancement of the citizen, but they are saying duties are not helping in advancement of a person, personality of a citizen. Is that true? No. Even the duties help are important for the advancement of the personality of the citizen. And if you see option D, duties and not rights are important for stability of the state. If you see here, both the duties and the rights both are important for the stability of a state. So this statement is also wrong. So the correct answer is option A. If you see the next question, which of the following statements are true for fundamental duties of an Indian citizen? Statement 1, a legislative process has been provided to enforce these duties. Statement 2, they are correlative to the legal duties. So they are asking about the fundamental duties. So the basic point or the basic fact regarding the fundamental duties is what? It is not enforceable by the court of law. But they have given in the statement 1, that is, there is a legislative process for enforceable of this particular fundamental duties. So this statement would be wrong, because the fundamental duties are not enforceable by the court of law. And if you see the second statement, they are correlative to the legal duties. See, there are two type of duties. Yes, one, the fundamental duties which are mentioned in the Constitution of India, right? There are other legal duties as well. So the basic fact is that these fundamental duty, this is not enforceable. Even if a citizen is not following these duties, the court can't punish him legally. But let's say there is some sort of legal duty, but if a citizen is not following, or if a citizen is going against the law, then it will be enforceable. This will be enforceable by the court of law. He will be punished according to that particular law. So technically the fundamental duties and the legal duty, they are not correlative. So in the second statement, they have given that they are correlative. So this statement is also wrong. So what is the correct answer? The answer is D, neither one nor two. If you see the next question, which of the following are envisaged by rights against exploitation in the Constitution of India? They are asking about the right against exploitation. Statement 1, prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Statement 2, abolition of untouchability. Statement 3, protection of interests of minorities. Statement 4, prohibition of employment of children in factories and mines. So just now, before few slides, we saw about the right against exploitation. We have only two articles in this right against exploitation, that is Article 23 and Article 24. So this first statement, prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor, this is nothing but this is Article 23 of the Constitution. And the fourth statement, prohibition of employment of children in factories and mines, this is nothing but Article 24 of the Constitution. So these two statements will be wrong. What is the correct answer? Option C, 1 and 4 is the correct answer. So if you see the next question, right to vote and to be elected in India is a fundamental right, natural right, constitutional right, legal right. So we know that this right to vote, it is part of Article 336 of the Indian Constitution. So this is nothing but the part of constitutional right. So if you see here, this is the next question. The right to vote and to be elected in India is a option A, fundamental right, option B, natural right, option C, constitutional right, option D, legal right. So right to vote is nothing but part of Article 326 of Indian Constitution. So this is nothing but a constitutional right. So the correct answer is option C. So in Indian Constitution, it guarantees the right to vote in Article 326 of the Indian Constitution. To exercise this right, every citizen must be at least 18 years old. So earlier what was there? It was 21 years. Earlier, only if you are older than 21 years, you had this right to vote. But later what happened in the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act of 1988, they reduced the voting age from 21 to 18 years. So the next question, which principle among the following was added to the Directive Principles of State Policy by the 42nd Amendment Act of the Constitution of India? Option A, equal pay for equal work for both men and women. Option B, participation of workers in the management of the industries. Option C, right to work, education and public assistance. Option D, securing living wage and humane condition for work to workers. So if you simply see this participation of workers in the management of industries, this is what added by a Constitutional Amendment Act of, that is 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. So this would be the right answer. And the other three options, they were present in the original DPSP. So if you see here, the Directive Principles of State Policy is found in Part 4 of the Constitution. Yes, we know that. And which covers the article from 36 to 51 of the Constitution. It has the values that the state should keep in mind when adopting the policies and enacting the laws. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, it added 4 different DPSPs. What are they? Already there was Article 32. They added a single part in that, that is, it guaranteed the healthy development of the children. That was added in Article 39. And the second part which they added was Article 39A, that provides for equal justice and free legal aid for poor people. Okay. Then in Article 43A, it mandated the action to ensure employees' involvement in the administration or management of the industries. This was also added. Then the fourth point which was added was Article 48A of the Constitution. It was to maintain forest and wildlife as well as to protect and develop the environment. So these four, 39, 39A, 43A and 48A, these were the 4 provisions which were added by the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. Okay, and this Article 39, it was already there. Only one provision, that is healthy development of children, was added to this through this amendment. And if you see the remaining options, that is Article 39D, it was equal pay for equal work for both men and women. This is Article 39D. It was present in the original constitution. Then Article 41, that is right to work, education and public assistance. This was also present in the original constitution. And Article 43, it is for securing the living wage and human condition for the work of workers. So this also was part of the original constitution. The next question, consider the following statements with reference to the Constitution of India. The directive principles of state policy constitutes the limitations upon legislative function, executive function. If you see the directive principles of state policy, this is kind of a guide to the government, to the state. When the government is coming up with any policies or it is going to enact any law, then they have to keep it in the mind, the ideals of the DPSP for a welfare state. But there is no restriction that the state or the government must follow these provisions, because this is not also enforceable and there is no compulsory or it is not obligatory on the government to follow these particular provisions. So this particular DPSP, it is not a limitation even for a legislative or for a executive. It is not at all a limitation. So both these are wrong. So the correct answer is D, neither one nor two. So the next question, which of the following is or are among the fundamental duties of the citizens laid down in the Indian Constitution? Statement 1, to preserve rich heritage of our composite culture. Statement 2, to protect the weaker section from the social injustice. Statement 3, to develop scientific temper and spirit of inquiry. Statement 4, to strive towards the excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. So what we'll do, let us recall the fundamental duties once. So these are the fundamental duties which are mentioned in Part 4A of the Constitution. Part 3, fundamental rights. Part 4, DPSP, and Part 4A is nothing but the fundamental duties. Let us recall this first. This Article 51A, this is about the fundamental duty. It is added in Part 4A of the Constitution by the recommendation of Swaran Singh Committee in 1976. And this was added by the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. This is very important. The fundamental rights is added through the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. And it actually added only 10 fundamental duties. Only 10 fundamental duties. But then what happened in 86th Amendment Act of 2002, the 11th fundamental duty, has been added. So currently we have the 11 fundamental duties, and which is part of Article 51A of the Constitution of Part 4A. So what are these fundamental duties? Let us have a look. So the first one is to abide by the Constitution and respect national flag and national anthem. The second one is to follow the noble ideals of freedom struggle. Third one is to protect the sovereignty, integrity of India. Then to defend the country and to render national services. Then the spirit of common brotherhood or fraternity. Then we have preserve composite culture of India. Then to preserve the natural environment. Then to develop the scientific temper. Then to safeguard the public property. Then to strive for excellence. And the last, the 11th fundamental duty, that is to provide educational opportunity for children up to 6 to 14 years. So this is the 11th and the last fundamental duty which was added. These are the short like form of the fundamental duties given here. You can take a screenshot if you want. So now let us try to answer this question. So the first statement, to preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. Yes, this was part of the fundamental duty. Second statement, to protect the weaker section from the social injustice. No, this was not the part of any fundamental right, fundamental duty. Then third statement, to develop the scientific temper and a spirit of inquiry. Yes, this was a part of fundamental duty. Fourth, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. Yes, this is also a part of fundamental duty. So what is the correct answer? 1, 3 and 4. That is option C. So the next question, under the Constitution of India, which one of the following is not a fundamental duty? So they are asking which of the following is not a fundamental duty. Option A, to vote in public elections. Option B, to develop the scientific temper. Option C, to safeguard the public property. Option D, to abide by the constitution and respect its ideas. Just now we saw the ideals of the fundamental duty. So to vote in public election, this was not the part of the fundamental duty, and all these three other options, these were the part of the fundamental duties. So what is the correct answer? Option A, which is not the part of fundamental duty. So the next question, with reference to the Constitution of India, consider the following. Statement 1, fundamental right. Statement 2, fundamental duty. Statement 3, directive principles of state policy. Which of the above provision of the Constitution of India is or are fulfilled by the National Social Assistance Program launched by the Government of India? This program was launched in 1995. So which of the particular provision of the Constitution which was safeguarded by or fulfilled by this particular program? The answer was DPSP. So the answer is only 3. Next question, which of the following is or are included in the directive principles of state policy? So the first statement, prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Statement 2, prohibition of consumption except for medicinal purposes of intoxicating drinks and of other drugs which are injurious to health. So they are asking which of these two provisions is mentioned in the DPSP. If you see the first statement, the prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor, this is nothing but Article 23 of the Constitution. What is Article 23? That is prohibition of traffic of human beings and forced labor. This is part of fundamental rights, not the part of DPSP. So we can eliminate this option, this statement. Second statement, the prohibition of consumption of intoxicating drinks and other drugs. Yes, this is part of DPSP and this is part of Article 47 of the Indian Constitution. Yes, this is part of DPSP. So only 2, option B is the correct answer. Yes, Article 47, it provides for prohibition of consumption except for medicinal purposes of intoxicating drinks and other drugs which are injurious to health. So the next question, consider the following statements. There is no provision in the Constitution of India to encourage equal pay for equal work. Then the second statement is Constitution of India does not define the backward classes. So if you see in the first statement, they have given that there is no provision in the Constitution for equal pay for equal work. But this provision is there in the DPSP in Article 39D of the Constitution. So this statement is wrong. Then if you see the second statement, the Constitution of India does not define the backward classes. Is it true? Whenever there comes this term, the Constitution defined or not defined, You have to double check whether the statement is correct or not. Most of the cases, the Constitution of India does not define most of the terms. So the first thing is, yes, the Constitution of India does not define the term backward classes. So this statement is correct. So the correct answer is only to option B. The next question, which article of the Constitution of India says no child below the age of 14 years shall be employed in work in any factory of mine or engaged in any hazardous employment? Option A, Article 24. Option B, Article 45. Option C, Article 330. Option D, Article 368. So if you see here, we actually read this particular provision. So if you see here, this particular provision has been mentioned in Article 24 of the Indian Constitution. It talks about the prohibition of child labor below the years of 14 years. So this is the correct answer. So if you see the next question, which one of the following rights are described by B.R. Ambedkar, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, as the heart and soul of the Constitution? Option A, right to freedom of religion. Option B, right to property. Option C, right to equality. Option D, right to constitutional remedy. So this is a basic fact, that is, the correct answer is right to constitutional remedy. This particular provision was described as heart and soul of the Constitution by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So the next question, which one of the following articles of DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy, deals with the promotion of international peace and security? So if we see, this particular DPSP is the last DPSP. So by common sense we can say that is Article 51 of the Constitution, which talks about the promotion of international peace and security. So the correct answer is option A. So if you see here, Article 51, it talks about the promotion of international peace and security. And Article 48A of Constitution, it talks about to promote and improve the environment. And Article 43A of the Constitution, it talks about securing the participation of workers in the industries. And Article 41, it talks about right to work, education and public assistance. So the next question, in the Indian Constitution, the right to equality is granted by the article. So we already saw the right to equality is between Article 14 to Article 18 of the Constitution. It talks about the right to equality. So the correct answer is Article 14 to 18 of the Constitution. Direct, simple answer. Then the next question, consider the following statements about the minorities in India. The first statement, the government of India has notified 5 communities, namely Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Buddhists, Zoroastrians as minorities. Statement 2, the National Commission for Minority was given statutory status in 1993. Statement 3, the smallest religious minority in India are the Zoroastrians. And statement 4, the Constitution of India recognizes and protects religious and linguistic minorities. So if you see the first statement, they have mentioned that only 5 communities have been given the minority status. Is that true? No. There are 6 communities which has been given the minority status. What are those 6 communities? One is Muslim, Sikh, Christian, Buddhist and Zoroastrians, and the one which is left here, that is the Jains. So this statement is wrong. If you see the second statement, the National Commission for Minorities was given statutory status in 1993. Yes, this statement is correct. And if you see the third statement, the smallest religious community in India are Zoroastrians. Yes, this is also the correct statement. Then the fourth statement, the Constitution of India recognizes and protects both religious and linguistic minority. Is that true? Yes, the Article 29 and 30 of the Constitution talks about the protection of minorities, and it protects both the linguistic and the religious minorities. So this statement is correct. So what is the correct answer? 2, 3 and 4. Option C is the correct answer. So the next question, the Constitution of India recognizes option A only religious minority, option B only linguistic minority, option C religious and linguistic minority, option D religious, linguistic and ethnic minorities. So just now we saw the Constitution of India in Article 29 and 30 of the Constitution. It recognizes both religious and linguistic minorities. So the correct answer is option C. So the next question, consider the following statements. No one can be compelled to sing the national anthem since statement number 1, it will be violative of the right of freedom of speech and expression. Statement 2, it will be violative of the right to freedom of conscience, practice and propagation of religion. Statement 3, there is no legal provision obliging anyone to sing the national anthem. So if you see the third statement, yes, there is no legal provision which obliges anyone, any citizen to sing the national anthem. Yes, this is true. The state or anyone cannot force any citizen or any person to sing the national anthem. So the third statement is correct. And if you see the first statement, it will be violative of right to freedom of speech and expression. Yes, the Supreme Court said the right to be silent, right to silence is actually part of right to freedom of speech and expression. Supreme Court said that. So if a person want to be silent, the state or any person cannot force someone to sing national anthem because it will be violative to the right to freedom of speech and expression. So this statement is also correct. And second statement, it will be violative to the right to freedom of conscience, practice and propagation of religion. Yes, this is correct. If a person does not want to sing national anthem and anyone is forcing, yes, it is against, it is violative of that particular person's conscience, right to conscience, right? So this is also correct. So the correct answer would be 1, 2, 3. This is the correct answer. Option B is the correct answer. See, there exists no legal mandate enforcing an individual to sing national anthem, even though this Prevention of Insults of National Honor Act of 1971, it is there, but it does not impose singing national anthem on anybody. There is no compulsion that anyone should sing the national anthem. So technically, there is no legal mandate that you should be singing the national anthem. And the next question, prohibition of discrimination on groups of religion. Article 15 of the Constitution of India is a fundamental right classified under. They're simply asking that Article 15 is classified under which of the following? Option A, right to freedom of religion. Option B, right against exploitation. Option C, cultural and educational rights. Option D, right to equality. So if you remember, Article 15 is prohibition of discrimination, which is part of what? Right to equality. Right to equality is Article 14 to Article 18 of the Constitution. So the Article 15 comes under the right to equality. So the correct answer is option D. So that's all, students. That's all for today's class. Let us meet in the next class and we'll be seeing the next topic. So thank you, students.